Hello, and welcome to our show, Crooked Doctors.
Good doctors, folks.
Okay.
Today is Friday, March 14th, 2014.
Correct.
And we've got Jason Berg on the phone.
Hi, folks.
Jason's calling in because he has some family obligations and he needs to attend to a close relative. How's your close relative doing, Jason?
He's doing better. Thank God.
Okay, so Jason's in the field and we're in the studio.
Oh, that's good.
And today's show is going to be dedicated mostly to answering questions that I
Good.
got.
Question answer.
And these are really important answers because this is giving you, my friend,
Yes.
the information that you need to handle your situation.
Right.
But first, we're going to do our brief overview.
Right.
We're going to do a little follow-up with our tenants.
Sure.
And then we're going to get to the new information that you need. And I've gotten a flow chart that I gave, and we're going to be following up next week. This flow chart I gave to Assistant District Attorney, Manhattan Assistant District Attorney Alex Spiro.
Okay.
So he has this information, and he broke the law by helping the medical school ignore very important statutes. So the first thing we're going to do is go over our overview
Right.
very quickly because we're going to try to stick to this as we get new viewers.
Right.
So for the first, if you're an old viewer, for the first, can you zoom in on this a little bit, technical director?
We'll bring you up to speed, if you folks.
Yeah, can you zoom in on this?
The old viewers.
Okay, so if you're an old viewer, you probably can skip the first 10 minutes or so.
Exactly.
We may not want to, depending on what happens, because
Right.
sometimes I'm slapping the show together in like 5 minutes.
Right.
But we're going to do the overview. Then we're going to do some updates.
Sure.
Then we got our dirty lawyer tricks, how to protect yourself,
That's right.
and updates on them. There's a really important litigation point that I'll get to here probably next week. And then we try to help others.
Sure.
So let me do the brief overview.
Sure.
And basically what we got.
We keep condensing these overviews as we move along, so
Well,
you can get the meat of the issue. Right.
There we go. So basically, this is one of the big pictures, so we don't get lost in the details. And if you just zoom in a little bit, one of the big pictures is I'm subjected to crimes in New York.
Yes.
Subjected to crimes in New Jersey. A lot of the crimes that came out, I'm being persecuted through life by Yeshiva University,
Right.
and this is one of the big pictures. So I was subjected to physical violence at Jersey City Medical
right.
Center. A lot of the issues at Yeshiva University came out in my landlord-tenant case. So I was subjected to crimes in New Jersey, and it led to a cover-up in New York.
Right.
So this is the malicious prosecution and the abusive process. And remember, Ed DeFazio, who was the Hudson County prosecutor, has known about crimes like federal student loan fraud,
Sure.
federal Pell Grant fraud,
Exactly.
and New York State tuition assistance fraud since 2005. This cover-up started in 2009.
That's right.
So my complaints against Yeshiva University for intentionally falsified financial information came first.
I see.
Okay, so this is one of the big pictures. And this is important because there are other students whose fact pattern are the same or very similar to mine,
Sure.
that they were placed in a decelerated program. They pay cash up front for 4 years worth of schooling,
That's right.
and then they don't get the classes that
They get shortchanged, folks.
That's right. They don't get the classes that they paid for. And there's a case right now in the Southern District of New York
Sure.
that's going to directly challenge the intentionally fabricated rulings that were made in my case with Judge Patterson. So we're going to get into this in depth and detail as in the upcoming weeks. But if these students here, can you zoom in just a little bit more?
In the yellow, I guess.
So if these students get relief, then how are you going to justify the intentionally falsified rulings in Lydia Radin's case?
Exactly.
And if these students don't get relief, well, then you've got more victims.
There you go.
And I want to make a comment to Dr. Kaligdin. Dr. Kaligdin is one of the crooked
I
doctors
see.
at Rikers Island Mental Health Department. I'm suing him right now.
Sure.
He practices, I understand, at Harlem Hospital. So he's dangerous to others
Sure.
in Washington Heights. And one of his comments about me to try to discredit me as a witness was to say, oh, look at all these people. All these people were responsible for fraud. Well, as we go into and he's trying to poo-poo me.
Yeah, that's
well, look at all the people that that were involved in defrauding these students. So it's a massive fraud.
Yeah.
So when Dr. Collickton says, oh, all these students, yeah, all these people were involved with defrauding these students, yes, and all these people, the regulatory agencies that have been co-opted, this was a massive fraud also, and this massive fraud was to the tune of over $400 million. So yes, Dr. Collickton, all these people too were involved in a massive fraud that harmed one plaintiff here. For 26 years, this woman was subjected to persecution.
And a point of information that you never took those courses, and the interest on those 4 loans are how much now on you?
That's a really good question, Jason, because this woman made the same point. It's not just that you're paying for the original loan amount, but they stick you with interest, penalties, fees, court costs. So you borrow a little bit amount of money, and it
balloons.
Thank you for helping me, Bill. It balloons into tens of thousands of dollars. For me, it's around $60,000 for classes I never got.
And that wasn't that 16,000?
Well, it was $16,000 for this woman in this article. She borrowed money to go to a trade school, and now today she's being asked to pay back $16,000 for classes she never got. I'm being asked to pay close to over $60,000 for classes I never got. We're going to get into all those details about federal student loan fraud.
Absolutely.
But it's not just me, because they also falsified my eligibility to receive a federal Pell Grant.
Got it.
And they falsified my eligibility to receive a New York State tuition assistance program grant. So you've got fraud, and maintaining false business records is a crime today. Refusing to allow me to make full, true, and accurate entries into my business records at Yeshiva University is a crime today. And there's no statute of limitation on debt collection, so they keep coming after you. And the people who really suffer right here are the students and the taxpayers.
Exactly.
Those are the people who really suffer.
Sure.
And the point of information, too, is that these institutions have to go by codes and statutes that they are regulated by the federal and state government. And what is so disgusting is the fact that this being let go, and where people who really need not to be served are being served.
So Jason's coming in a little bit garbled because he's in the field. He's with a family member who he needs to be with. They need some medical attention.
He's not on a hard line, folks.
Right. So it's like our reporter in the field and we're in the studio. But what Jason is saying is, we've also talked in previous episodes, and we'll talk again.
Sure.
Whether you're in a court that's governed by statutes, codes, laws, and regulations,
Exactly.
or whether you invoke common law jurisdiction where you're dealing with case law and common sense, the facts always, it doesn't, and I've said this to a federal judge in a filing that I made yesterday, it doesn't matter which jurisdiction I invoke, which court I'm in, the facts support me.
I see.
So there's no way for my adversary to win because the facts support me.
Sure.
I'm going to show the codes and the statutes and the laws,
Good.
and I'm also going to argue simple common sense. So whether you put me in an admiralty maritime court
Right.
or whether you put me in a common law court, I still win because the facts support me.
The facts don't change, right?
Terrific. Right, that's right. The facts don't change. So let me just finish with the overview a little bit. Oh, this is what I was talking about. If we're going to, we'll argue the two different court systems. If you zip in on this a little, zoom in on this a little bit, there will be new information in this. Can you zoom in a little bit on this? Because we'll be discussing this and there's basically two, and I'm grossly oversimplifying this, right? There's basically two legal systems, and whether I argue common law or whether I present the codes, rules, and regulations a la
Admiralty,
a la the Roman model,
Roman model.
it doesn't matter because the facts support me. So Jason, you asked me this question a while ago. Why are you always focused in on the facts, the facts, the facts?
That's right.
Because it doesn't matter whether I'm arguing this court or I invoke common law jurisdiction.
That's right.
The facts
Do not
support
change.
me.
And the real thing that's really disgusting, even when you have the facts and you have all the evidence, the judges, the courts don't want to listen to you because it's not in their service, it's in your service. Because the more they try to run you in, to run you down, then they run over you.
Oh yeah, this court system, and we're going to delve into this in upcoming episodes.
Sure.
This system is so corrupt,
It's deeply flawed, folks.
fatally flawed,
Fatally flawed.
fatally flawed in some
Some instances.
Yeah. Whoops, sorry. So if you're, let me finish with the overview.
Sure.
So I'm being persecuted, Lydia Radin, by Yeshiva University,
Yes.
and I'm going to start putting out DVDs that say stop. Before I went to prison, before I was illegally convicted
Sure.
in violation of my my civil rights, and before I was illegally incarcerated,
Sure.
I was putting out DVDs that said stop the railroading of Lydia Radin. I'm going to start putting out DVDs by the hundreds that say stop the persecution.
And one point is, you notice all this is gathering steam at this point in time. How do you
Thanks to you.
What do you, absolutely, and Jason, and how else do you attribute that? I mean, to the circumstance or
Because
the
you-
times, or
Because you can't fool all the people all the time.
I got it.
Right. But the real thing here is that they want to keep installing, and they realize their oath is their bond.
Yeah.
And their bond is their oath.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing here is that state judges are not bonded by themselves. They're bonded by the controller, where we, the people, pay for their abuse and neglect to get ungat.
Yeah, what Jason is saying is that they're bound to all the judges and court officers that we deal with, and the sheriffs and the FBI, and they all take an oath to uphold the Constitution.
Got it.
So, for example, in my case, when I've been denied equal protection, when I've been denied my Sixth Amendment constitutional right to effective assistance of counsel, my constitutional right has been violated. And in Pauline Roman's case, when her Fifth Amendment constitutional right to due process of law has been violated, we make a point of pulling the judge's oath and holding them to their oath. They promise to uphold the Constitution. So it's your Fifth Amendment constitutional right to due process of law, which was denied in my case and Pauline Roman's case. And it's my Sixth Amendment constitutional right to effective assistance of counsel in the underlying criminal case that I'm appealing right now has also been violated. So what we do is, and you can do this too, remember we're giving out information to help others out there. Go to the county courthouse or the clerk of records anytime you're dealing with a corrupt judge, and they're practically all corrupt, and pull their written oath and hold them to their oath to uphold the Constitution. And we'll talk about more as we go forward.
We will.
So there's a bigger picture because there's an international picture. There's a city, county, state, federal, and international big picture. But this is the big picture in New York, which is not unlike the Jim Crow South. And I'm going to quote Reverend Sharpton here because he says there's more racism in up north than there is down south.
That's been common knowledge, right? Yeah. It's more subtle. It's overt in the South, but it's actually more powerful in the North for the various reasons which you'll outline. But go ahead. Overt, right?
So what we got here is, this is a system very simply, not to lose the audience in the details, but I'm dealing with Zionist racism, or I'm dealing with the racism of Yeshiva University. Remember, Yeshiva University was found to discriminate on the basis of religion against those who are not Orthodox Jews.
Yes.
In the 1999 Diane Persky case.
Right.
If you Google her, you'll find that her internet footprint has been obscured. The information is not as readily available on the internet when you Google this as it was when I was doing this in 2003, 2004.
But can you make this
I
more
already-
available? Are you
Yeah.
doing that
Yeah, I am.
breakthrough?
Yes, I am. I already talked to the attorney that handled the Diane Persky case.
I got it.
And I already have those documents. You can get them in the Southern District of New York. So even if it's not readily available because Yeshiva University is obscuring its footprint with this information, you can still get it. So basically, you got rich donors like Rita and Stanley Kaplan, and they donate to the Democratic Party.
Are these campaign contributions?
That's right.
Okay,
It's not a bribe. It's a campaign contribution.
I got it.
It's still a bribe because you have to be a puppet to your master.
One last thing. A rose by any other name is still a rose. Go ahead.
We know that
Oh,
swine is a swine.
Yeah, well, whatever.
So we got rich donors like Rita and Stanley Kaplan. They donate to the Democratic Party, and the Democratic Party uses it to elect in New Jersey Ed DeFazio, in New York DA Morgenthau and DA Vance.
Got it.
And because they're beholden to these rich donors,
Right, exactly.
they also donate money to Yeshiva University.
I see.
They get a big, because Yeshiva University is tax exempt, the rich...
Tax write-off.
They get a nice benefit. It's not just that Yeshiva University doesn't pay taxes, but the donors get a nice benefit too.
I see.
So that's why this is a community concern.
I see.
And the victims of Yeshiva University get no relief because the people who are involved in law enforcement, just like in the Jim Crow South, are the very people who are getting money from these racists to begin with.
They've been on it, folks. Go ahead.
So, I was very disappointed in Rita and Stanley Kaplan because I worked for Kaplan Educational Centers for 5 years. They knew I was a good person. They knew I did very good work for their company. But at the end of the day, when I put together the Yeshiva Victims Group, what I got from Rita and Stanley Kaplan is, we'll help the Orthodox Jewish girl, Lydia, but not you because you're not Jewish.
I see.
So, that's supposed to be standard. Everybody sort of understands that. Can you imagine if Catholics said that? Catholics only help other Catholics.
Right.
Protestants only help other Protestants. Buddhists only help other Buddhists.
Yeah.
The only thing I know is that you're supposed to be here, regardless of your religion, as a server for your Lord God. And anyone that comes in your life is to be aided and helped without concern of their religion.
Thank you.
Can you mention separation of church and state? Is there anything in that?
There's no such thing as separation of church and state. We'll get to that later.
We will? Okay.
Yeah, we'll get to that later. There's no such thing as separation of church and state. That's a
Myth.
That's a misquote from a founding father. But what Jason is saying is that if you love God and you want to show God that you love Him, then you offer yourself in service to others, and it shouldn't matter, what religious group you're involved in.
One last thing: the vast majority of students in Catholic schools in New York and in New Jersey are non-Catholics. I mean, so there's really no discrimination there. But
that's very good point.
And this goes contrary to the Yeshiva University.
Malik, if you want to zoom out a little bit. Bill, say that again slowly for the audience.
The vast majority of students in Catholic schools in New York and New Jersey are non-Catholics. I
didn't know that.
Well, there's a fact, and it's become more so recently. The quality of education draws them, that's basically.
Thank you for sharing that. So that's very good. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. So what I want to do very quickly is we've gotten through some. There's another big picture. Here's the last big picture, and then we'll get into new information. Okay, so that's kind of the picture in the city and the county and the state, but here's the national and the state picture. Okay, so I'm writing these little overviews as quickly as I can. So if you just okay, so what we got here is this is some of the really, really big picture where we can go international.
I see.
Okay, and what we got is we got the Bob Jones University case, which shows for the last 30 years or so that the U.S. Supreme Court fabricated, wholesale made up a ruling that was applied to Bob Jones University. Now, it doesn't matter if you like these people or not. The bottom line is they were victimized. And there are no victims of Bob Jones University. The argument to revoke their tax exemption was completely made up. It was completely fabricated. And basically what it said, and I can get into some of more of those details later, but basically what it says is, if you're found to, and the Supreme Court completely made this up. If you're found to discriminate, you're not charitable, and if you're not charitable, then you should have your tax exemption revoked.
Okay, got it.
So when I discovered the Bob Jones University case, I said, well, Yeshiva University was found to discriminate on the basis of religion.
Absolutely.
Just like Bob Jones University, they claimed.
That's right.
But Yeshiva University has real victims. So how come the federal government is not revoking Yeshiva University's tax exemption?
Well, this is a double standard.
Thank you.
But it's also the guilt of the American government via the genocide in Europe against the Jews. And again, to concur with Will, it is a double standard. And they really should lose their papers and be fined the necessary fees and retribution for their violation of the people.
Well, it's what you're talking about is collective Western guilt for the 6 million Jews that were
Holocaust.
But 5 million Catholics were also killed, and thousands of homosexuals, and goodness knows how many gypsies. So if you want to do if you want to go forward with that argument, great. The world owes me a living. I'm a Catholic. Great. Let's make the Catholic state. Man's inhumanity to man is not an excuse to steal land from the Arabs. Can you go up a little bit more? Okay.
So back to us again.
So you still have got the double standard. So if you're gonna argue that, then what that's pointing out right here is there's a book called the Israeli Lobby and U.S. Foreign Policy.
And you're doing the sequel.
And I'm doing the natural sequel, which is a de facto PhD project, which is the Israeli Lobby and U.S. Domestic Policy.
Got it.
So, and the Democratic Party doesn't like it, but
of course not.
Again, the facts are the facts.
Well, let me add a point here. Anyone who questions the U.S. government is considered an enemy of the government.
Enemy of the state.
Enemy of the state, enemy of the government. You're anti-American, and this is not coming from me. This is coming from the Anti-Defamation League, the Southern Law Center, who are supposed to be looking out for hate crimes and stuff, and they themselves are perpetrators of the same ignorance.
Yeah, just because you criticize the government does not mean that you're
unpatriotic.
Exactly. That's what America was set up to do, to have free speech and to criticize. And just because you criticize Israel or the Zionist movement,
doesn't mean you're anti-Semitic, folks.
Thank you. So let me just finish this big picture. So the big picture is you got Bob Jones University.
I got it.
So you got a double standard. You've got this Southern Christian evangelistic school, fabricated arguments, no real victims, and then you've got a Northern Orthodox Jewish school with real victims, and their tax exemption is not revoked.
And double standard.
Right. And then
they created victims that weren't there, which are known as phantoms. And in a case of law, if there's no victim, there's no crime. Ergo, the federal government are responsible for defrauding the school that had no victims.
They are. And I talked to some of the principals of Bob Jones University. They don't want the federal money because, as we'll get into in future episodes, the federal money is just a way to interfere with the internal workings of the school, and you get no benefit. So they rejected the federal money. But this.
Lydia, just one question. Could you use this as a basis in your case, the unequal application of the law?
Yes.
Would this apply?
Yes. Yeah.
How so?
Well, we're going to see all of that. Okay, so let me just get into the this. And so we got the national, we got what's happening in the state of New York. And remember, there's the magistrate judge who's already seen all this in an ongoing lawsuit that I have right now.
I see.
And we've got what's happening in New Jersey, Hudson County prosecutor,
Yeah.
Jersey City.
Yeah.
In New York, we've got the Manhattan DA, the Bronx DA, the Brooklyn DA.
Yeah.
Yeshiva University is a conduit for Israel.
I see.
And here in Jersey City, where Jason and Bill Doherty live, you got Mayor Fulop.
Yeah.
Okay, so Mayor Fulop has known about all the crimes in my case.
Yes.
He pretends to be a Marine. He's not a Marine. And he needs to be removed from office for moral turpitude. Because as time goes on, the only thing we get from Mayor Fulop is he demonstrates that he's just a fraud.
I see.
He's also a coward.
Thank you.
Why is he a coward? I have been trying to see him since June 2000 on 27 points that I submitted to him. Some of the things have been used, some of them haven't. But the real thing, I've seen his underlings, his subordinates, and the only thing I want to do is talk to him. And I keep on getting, they want to feel you out. Gee, I didn't realize that he was risk to get into the mayor.
Didn't he? Wasn't he involved in your case in 2008? And just briefly, in one sentence or so, how did that happen? Mayor Fulop.
Thanks for asking. Mayor Fulop is dodging Jason Berg. Jason Berg has it's pretty normal in Jersey City if you've got citizens and they've got good ideas.
Standard.
Yeah, it's pretty standard that you go and you talk to your city council, and if it's a good idea and you can
Sure.
and they want to affect good positive change in the city,
sure.
that they would use your ideas. So Jason, like other citizens, came up with a list, and he'd like to sit down with the mayor and discuss it.
Sure.
Now, I met with Steve Fulop when he was my
2008.
before that, he was my city. I was living in Jersey City.
And he was your city council.
He was my city
for Ward
council.
E.
I'm living in Jersey City since 2004, 2003.
And what happened?
And I sat down with Mayor Fulop when these crimes were committed, and I went through all of this when he was my city councilman. He did nothing.
Really?
Okay, he spit in my face, and then I started speaking out at city council meetings, and he used to leave the room. He is a coward, Jason.
Yeah, he would take off when Lydia got up to speak. I remember that vividly.
Yeah, because he was like, "Hear no evil, see no evil." He's trying to make up this plausible deniability that if I'm not in the room, I can't be responsible. That's the Marine who runs away. Give me a phone number. Who do I call in Washington?
At one city council meeting, he stayed there, and he did challenge you, as I recall. There was a back and forth.
Because I humiliated him. Because I humiliated him. The Marine who runs away. Who ever heard of such a thing? Marines don't run away.
Stand your ground.
So unless you're going to fall back, regroup, and attack again, you do not run away. So Jason has a list of some really good ideas that he'd like to present to the mayor, and if they're viable, you should go forward. But God forbid Jason's good ideas are used, because he might get credit for them. Yeah. He might demonstrate that he's a force for good in the world. Yeah. Who knows? Somebody might actually elect him to office because he earned it. Oh, no, we can't have the competition come up. Sure. So they keep you down, and the citizens suffer. Why? For petty interpersonal power struggles? That's ridiculous. Okay, so Jason, is that a fair representation of what's going on so far?
Yeah, that's a fair representation. I've never asked anyone for anything. That's simple record. To sit down with him as one gentleman to another.
So something. Let's have Steve Fulop sit down with us. He won't. Now, what I wanted to do is I got some questions on federal student loan fraud, because apparently there are other victims out there, as we know, because we've got them, in these trade schools. So what I want to do is just show some key points. Now, this is what you need to look for. This is a specific. This is what you need to look for, and I don't want the friends that I'm talking to out there, and you know who you are because you're watching my show. I don't want you to get lost in the details, okay? You're going to go to the Code of Federal Regulations. The Code of Federal Regulations is the administrative code that allows these programs to be administered. But
One thing about Lydia, she cuts to the chase, and this is excellent. People don't do this, but go ahead.
Okay, well, because we only have an hour, so I have to. Okay, you want to use the Code of Federal Regulations, so I'm going to show you a couple tabs, and then I'm going to show you why you're getting justice in your case.
Right.
Okay, so let's go to the Skype computer, and what you're going to do is you're going to type in, if you just zoom in on the Google search bar.
Sure.
Okay, just zoom in a little bit, Malik. I'm talking to our technical director who's helping us.
Yes, she's helping.
Okay, a little bit more, because when I put this up on YouTube, I want it to be clear. Okay, so what you're going to do is you type in Code of Federal Regulations 34, that's Title 34, Financial Responsibility. And you see right there, 34 CFR Part 668. So that's the part. There's going to be another part, so you're going to use two parts of the Code of Federal Regs.
Okay.
Federal regulations. Now, don't go anywhere yet, Malik. The Code of Federal Regulations is the administrative code that allows these programs to be administered.
I see.
But the law is from the U.S. Code. The authority comes from the U.S. Code, but we're going to do that later. So 34, Title 34 is education. Now, anybody out there can go to any law library. Sure. Because you are a taxpayer. You can go to Columbia. You can go to NYU.
You can go to Seton Hall, Newark.
There you go. Yes, you can. Thank you, Bill.
Governor Christie's school, alma mater. Go ahead.
You can go to Seton Hall Law School in Newark, New Jersey, and you go to the front desk and you say, "I'm a taxpayer. I'm here to use the federal statutes." And because you're a taxpayer, you can walk into any library, any law school library, and use the federal, because they're called a federal depository, and you can use the law school library to look up the federal statutes to help protect you. So you can go to the Code of Federal Regulations, and you go to Title 34, and if you click, or you can do it online, like we're doing it. If you click on that, or you go to the next, you could click on it. Go to the next tab. Go to the next tab. When you click on it, no, actually go back. If you just click on that, here's what's going to come up. This is it. Okay. So if you just center it a little bit, and maybe, you want to expand it. Zoom.
Expand it, yeah.
No. Malik, could you just scroll down a little bit, or pull out the bar a little bit more at the bottom? Like expand the just pull it out a little bit. You make it bigger, yeah, that's good. And if you scroll down a little, now you can see where you're going to get lost in the Code of Federal. That's good. You can see that this is going to drive you completely bananas.
Sure.
So but these are the codes that you're looking for. I know my way through them because I went through them exhaustively with attorneys. Can you scroll up a little bit, Malik? And what you're looking for, can you zoom in a little bit? There are two key, a little bit more. Okay, and just center it so we can look at, we're going to be looking at 668.116, section. That little squirrely sign is called section. So it's 34. Keep going down. No, right there. Can you highlight that? We put the cursor, little hand under. Can you highlight 668.16 standards of 15? I'm sorry, 0.14 right there. Yeah, just highlight that. Okay, that's going to be key. All right, don't go anywhere yet. So there's going to be two key statutes that you're going to use right now in this show, because we got like less than half an hour left. Can you zoom in a little bit more, Malik? Okay, and then just center it a little bit. Okay. What we're going to be, there are two key statutes in all of this. So we're going to be looking at the factors of financial responsibility, and the one underneath it, which is 34, the squirrely sign is section 34 CFR, Code of Federal, so it's 34 CFR, section 668.16, standards of administrative capability. That's key because you can make your argument for discrimination, but you'll be using you can show how if there are different standards for different students, then you can show that the school is discriminating, but you don't have to make an argument in discrimination based on, a race, gender, or sexual orientation. Sure. All you have to do is show. It's much easier to make your discrimination argument. So what you're doing is you're using the administrative code that governs the administration of federal student loans to protect yourself.
Great.
This is a key insight. You use these two. Can you highlight 668.15 factors of financial responsibility?
Yes, I said.
Okay, these are the two key key statutes that you're going to use to protect yourself. So if you're a student and your school administers federal student loans, not only do you have the U.S. Code Title 18, which protects you because this is an institution that's receiving federal funds,
Sure.
and you're supposed to be enjoying the benefits of those federal funds, but you can use the administrative code that governs the administration of federal student loans to protect yourself.
I see.
And when you're using the standards of administrative capability, can you just highlight the one underneath that? Yeah. You can make an argument for discrimination, but it's easier to make that argument because all you have to show is that there are different standards for different students.
Sure.
So can you come back to me for a minute, Malik?
Yeah.
So this is basically what you're going to use. Can you focus in on this? And I hope I'm not. Here we go.
Good.
Okay, so the two key sections are, well, I'm going to go down here. When you Google, you're going to Google the Code of Federal Regulations, 34, that's the title, financial responsibility, and you're going to come to 34 CFR, Code of Federal Regulations, Part 668. And these are the two key sections you're going to use. 34 CFR, Section 668.15, which is the factors of financial responsibility. And when we go through the details, what you're going to see is that if the institution, two things, if the institution is not providing the services that it made in its official publications and statements, it's demonstrating that it's financially irresponsible, okay, and it cannot administer these programs. Or if the school is not making refunds, and this is for you, my friend, and you know who you are, if the school is not making the refunds that it is required to make, then it's demonstrating, the school is demonstrating, like Yeshiva University's medical school demonstrated, that it's financially irresponsible and these programs should be pulled. In future episodes, I'm going to show how this section right here, the standards of administrative capability, if you're treating different students differently, if you have different standards for different students, once again, you're demonstrating that the school is incapable to administer federal student loans. So these are your two key statutes. And if we go back to, Malik, if you go back to the Skype computer, and if you click on standards of, go up, no, one up, go right there. Just wait. This is, okay. Yeah, that's good. If you scroll over a little, can you go back just for a minute because we went a little too fast and I don't want to lose people. Go up to 668.15. Okay, so we're going to look at these details now. So this is 34 CFR, Code of Federal Regulations, Section 668.15. Let's look at some of the factors of financial responsibility. Okay, and if you could zoom out a little bit so that we could get the overall. Okay, that's good. So these are the factors of financial responsibility, and if you highlight on one, right? No, right there, is providing the services described in its official publications and statements. Okay? So why is that important for me? I'm going to show you. Can you come back to me, Malik? Okay. Okay. Now remember, in past episodes, I showed you my criminal trial transcript. I'm doing this for a reason.
I got it.
There's,
Go ahead.
this is my criminal trial transcript.
Of course.
Okay, so this is page 364 of my criminal trial transcript. Now remember, in nauseating detail, before we went to trial, I gave all of this to Alex Spiro, Manhattan District Attorney, Assistant District Attorney Alex Spiro, who will be disbarred for his participation in some of these crimes. Okay, so this is page 364 of my criminal trial transcript. And remember, the school stipulated, okay, and a judge signed off on this. So this was Judge McLaughlin signed off on this. There was absolutely no support for my project, my research project, contrary to the College of Medicine's promises that they support student research 100%.
Sure.
Okay? So this is their official statements and publications in in the recruitment process, during when I was applying to medical school, during my interview, okay, they defrauded me into entering the school. They fraudulently induced me into entering the school based on false promises in the admissions process. And they said that they support student research 100%.
That's right.
But they stipulated during my criminal trial in 2010, this is the admission of guilt, there was absolutely no support for her project.
None at all.
This is my original clinical research project, which is a graduation requirement.
I see.
So if they're not supporting my graduation requirement, that tells you they don't want me to graduate. Okay, this is malicious. This is a hostile environment. There was absolutely no support for her project at Long Island Jewish Medical Center.
Right.
So obviously I'm not a big anti-Semite, because the school would have benefited from me publishing my work. The department I worked for, the emergency medicine department, Dr. Rennie, Dr. Silverman, all the doctors, the attending physicians at Long Island Jewish Medical Center would have benefited from me publishing my work. The department would have benefited. The hospital, Long Island Jewish Medical Center, would have benefited, and my school would have benefited. So these are...
Yeah, they shot themselves in the foot, folks, because they could have benefited, and now they're out to lunch.
More important to hurt Lydia Radin as an individual than to have all these people benefit, including the patients and future patients. Okay, so there was absolutely no support for her project, contrary to the College of Medicine's promises that they support student research 100%. Okay, so in past episodes, I showed how this was misrepresentation, right? So this was misrepresentation.
Sure was.
I went through how they were misrepresenting. They were making making false or misleading statements to prospective students and to enrolled students. So they violated the... Yeah.
What was your research project going to be on?
I was interviewing... come back to me for a minute. Jason, I'm going to answer your question in just 1 second.
All right.
Okay, so this is part of the code that I've showed before.
Sure.
But what's important now, I just want to finish this thought,
Sure.
is that not only do we have the Code of Federal Regulations saying that you can't make misrepresentations
Exactly.
to prospective students or to enrolled students and their families,
Sure.
but remember, you've got the factors of the factors of financial responsibility.
Sure.
So if you're not providing the services that you promised in your official publications and statements, and you're misrepresenting the school during the admissions process, you are violating the Code of Federal Regulations. And these programs, the federal student loan program, and needs to be pulled from this school.
Absolutely.
Okay, so these are the codes that you're using.
The school could be defunded, as it
The
were?
school, yeah, defunded. Once you have now, what's important here in my criminal trial transcript, if you could zoom in on this a little bit. Okay, what's important here is that once there is a judicial determination
I got it.
that fraud has occurred in the administration of federal student loans,
Sure.
then by law, the school's ability to administer these programs has to be revoked forever. Okay, so I've said. Let me just finish this thought, Jason, then you can jump in. I've said erroneously in the past that I don't need a judicial determination because I have a stipulation. But in fact, I was wrong, so I take this opportunity to correct myself.
Stand corrected, folks.
I do have a judicial determination because remember, this stipulation was reviewed and signed by Judge McLaughlin in the criminal court.
Sure.
So I do have a judicial determination. Judge Edward McLaughlin signed off on this.
Sure.
Judge Edward McLaughlin, signed off that there was absolutely no support for my project,
That's right.
contrary to the College of Medicine's promises that they support student research 100%. So not only do I have the stipulation that everybody agreed, the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, Judge McLaughlin, my attorneys, that there was misrepresentation, but they are not providing the services made in their official publications and statements.
I got it.
Okay, so again, they violated the administrative code that allows them to function, and I do have a judicial determination of fraud in the administration of federal student loans. That's just one example. And I've talked in the past about how they misrepresented, so they violated at least 2 major sections of the code.
Okay.
So if you come back to me, Jason has asked a very good question.
Go ahead. Well, repeat the question for the.
We repeat the question. What was your research project as a medical student that you needed to complete?
I was doing an original clinical research project, and a research project is required for graduation.
Yes.
Some students take the easy way out, and they'll just do like a literature review, so they're not doing original work. Okay, so I'm going to blow my own horn here. I was doing original clinical research in a very difficult field because I was discussing people who are being sent home to die because there was nothing that we could offer them.
Okay.
So I would go to people who were being sent home to die, and I did not just work in the emergency room.
Sure.
I was interviewing patients as they were being sent home, and I was interviewing them about issues surrounding death.
Absolutely.
And one of the very first interviews that I did, so I would sometimes go alone into hospital rooms with sick and dying, very vulnerable people. I'd close the door and I would interview these people who were being sent home to die because we had nothing else to offer them.
Sure.
One of my first interviews was with an attorney who was being sent home.
Okay.
And so I was talking about issues around death, but I can tell you this, that's the level of trust that I enjoyed at Long Island Jewish Medical Center. Now, attending physicians don't go into hospital rooms alone, close the door, and sit alone with sick and dying patients. If there was something wrong with me, if I was not 125% fit for the practice of medicine, I could never go into a hospital room, close the door, and sit alone with lots of dangerous equipment with sick and dying patients. Okay, that would not be allowed. I created my own schedule. I came in nights and weekends. I did not check in and out with anybody. I worked on every floor and ward of the hospital, and I'm sitting there talking to someone who's facing death, and I'm talking to people who are being sent home, because.
But the thing is, what were you trying to get out of the interview process?
Well, that I can't answer now.
Yes, you have to reflect it.
So because we only have about less than 15 minutes
Next
left.
program, please.
But there were questionnaires that I developed that would have been the subject of the papers that I was writing.
Of course.
And then there's other subjects that I was interviewing the interviewees that I am not permitted to talk about.
Not at liberty to speak at this time. Go ahead.
But I had a questionnaire and and I had copies of the questionnaire, and they were cross-referenced. Dr. Rennie had sent in, and this is really important information for medical students out there. The way you're hired for a residency position is they want to know how you function in the hospital. So there I am. I'm doing very good research. I'm on track to publish as a principal author. I'm on track to publish 3 to 5, depending on how you broke up the data, original clinical research papers. I'm talking to people about death, which is one of the most difficult subjects you can talk about someone with.
Of course.
That and violent sexual assault, which is what I did with Women Organized Against Rape. I'm working in very difficult areas, and so I'm demonstrating that that I can function in the hospital very well.
Sure.
Dr. Rennie, William Rennie at Long Island Jewish Medical Center, sends in a quote very favorable performance review to the medical school, but Martin Bachstein and his henchmen don't like it, so they take my performance review and they throw it away.
Wow.
And they completely fabricate my educational records. This is the single best piece of information I can give to pre-med. Well, actually, I have a lot of information from pre-meds. But you're going to a medical school that's throwing out, and for students there too, I got some feedback that, oh, you're hurting the institution and you're hurting the students and you shouldn't attack the institution. That's not true. Me, Marlene, Javon, in our Yeshiva victims group, we sent over, me and Marlene, during one 3-day period, we sent out over 5,000 emails to the student body, to the faculty. We went to the board of trustees. We went to Yeshiva University's law school and asked for help from the law school students. So we asked a lot of people in this university that what was happening to us was wrong and they should help us put a stop to it. It's not just the individuals. It's the entire school that's corrupt.
It's the smoking gun, folks.
It's the entire school that's corrupt.
Smoking gun.
It's not just...
It's even more. It's the smoking building.
Right, yeah. But, you know, if you're a medical school student, you're on the wards, and the attending physician who's, your direct report, which is the attending physician like William Rennie, is sending a very good performance review of your hospital performance to the dean of students, and he's hiding it. You know, he's deliberately creating a false educational record, and he's hiding it in something called an unofficial file. I mean, you know, they're creating a false record. They're lying about you. I mean, I would be scared to death to be a student at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine, because this is what.
Scared to be death to be a patient.
Thank you. Thank you. And you know what's really scary? This is in the Marlene Abramova case. Now we worked within the school. I mean, we sent out 5,000 emails. We went to Victor Seidel, Physicians for Socially Responsibility. The man spit in our faces, socially responsible everywhere but in his own school. We went to Elie Wiesel, Nobel Peace Prize winner, Holocaust survivor. You know, you who had everything taken from you by force without the rule of law has got to understand. We weren't asking these people to be reinstated. We weren't asking to be vindicated. We were asking to be in the room. What a concept. To be in the room. To hear the arguments against you. This is what happened to Marlene. Can you show this? It's so stupid that she lost her case. This little Russian girl makes me so mad.
Really blew it.
Well, one thing they did too, you have the right under the Constitution to face your accusers, and in the event that
I
they
would have
didn't
mentioned that.
do that, they violated constitutional rights, and that's another thing. Your civil rights were abused.
Yeah, and I brought this out to Marlene. Can you zoom in just a little bit more? This is what the school admitted to. They admitted that ACOM, Albert Einstein College of Medicine, that's ACOM. ACOM's internal rules do not permit students to cross-examine witnesses at student disciplinary hearings. So
that's ridiculous.
If you can't cross-examine a witness, that's not a hearing.
That's right.
No, it's called a kangaroo court.
Yeah.
That's right. The first time I showed this to Jason, he's like, that's not a hearing, that's an inquisition. Thank you, Jason.
That's right.
You're welcome.
And here, they admitted that ACOM, Albert Einstein College of Medicine's internals rules do not contemplate the preparation of a transcript of the proceedings. You're in some sort of internal meeting, and there's no certified verbatim transcript. So what's a judge going to review? Air? We're going to get...
That's a violation of simple reporting and how they know that they came down with the decision. But there's nothing.
There's no minutes.
Well, it's not minutes. You need a transcript, not minutes. You have no record of what went on.
Of course.
This is not a hearing. You mean to tell me, now we go to the law school, me, Marlene, Alan Raskoff, a community activist, we go down to Yeshiva University's law school, Cardozo Law School. We didn't ask, we begged for help. You're telling me all you people at the law school think this is a hearing? You know, you deceived us, you lied. That this is not a hearing.
Right.
You know, this is a kangaroo court, a star chamber justice. Yeah. This is a violation of your civil rights. Now it's a human rights issue. And where did all this come out? This came out to be found in the public record in Marlene Abramova versus the Albert Einstein College of Medicine. There's the index number. And it's Stephen Russo with Dan Rizal. I mean, you got to be kidding me with this. I told Marlene, you argue the civil rights issue and you could have won.
Absolutely.
You didn't need to plagiarize from me. You didn't need to ruin your own case.
Well,
No
Can you-
cost.
can-
No
Can you
cost.
go back a little bit?
and a plagiarist, you have no honor.
You know, demonstrated that they made the right decision for the wrong reasons. What a stupid, stupid girl. Could have won her case. In her case, look, these are the memos that the school released. Okay, if you go down and look, Jimmy David was dean of students. There are more memos that are initialed by him. These were released, and these memos make a lot of points right here. This is from the Marlene case, and right here, they're redacting. These are internal school memos of the promotions committee meetings.
I see.
And this student here, they redacted their name, asked to speak to the committee. She had failed 3 exams prior to December of the first year and is seeking to avoid a decelerated schedule. Yeah, because if you fail 3 classes, you're automatically decelerated. So the lie they told that Lydia Radin failed all her classes except for one as a first-year medical student, it's now in order to justify falsified financial records is an outright lie. Right here in their internal memos, this is corroboration. Right? They're saying if you fail 3 classes, you're automatically decelerated, which is not full time. And there's more internal memos that can be found in the Marlene Abramova case when the school was releasing internal school documents that were signed and reviewed by Jimmy David, who was dean of students, but I caught him lying. And James David, it was one of the complaining witnesses against me. I caught him lying, not only in my case, but in the Marlene Abramova case and in other cases. So he runs around behind my back telling people that I'm his patient. I never was. That's profoundly disturbed. And he was one of the complaining witnesses against me who lied to put me in Rikers Island. He had a retaliatory motive, if you pull out for a moment. So we got about, a minute and a half left? Okay, so we're gonna go, this is what's gonna happen. I'm going down to the FBI, and the FBI is responsible for enforcing federal statutes. I'm gonna go down to the FBI and lay out the paperwork, and let's see what they have to say about, this is my falsified promissory note, and let's see what they have to say about all these violations of federal law, which we'll get into.
Can,
Go ahead.
I know you only have a minute. I just want to tell the folks that tomorrow there will be a meeting with the National Alliance of New Jersey, 8 counties. It will be at St. George Avenue at Denny's in Annabelle, AV, and New Jersey, from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock. Everyone is welcome to attend Jersey. If you want to take action, help Lydia be victimized, be recognized, crimes committed against, your input is needed. Time is running out for your freedom. And I just want to make what I said with Lydia. My facts, and my resolve against my enemy, my obstructioner, will pay for the neglect, abuses, and fraud, etc., many times over, financially and their freedom. I will be vindicated through my evidence, the federal codes, and state statutes. All parties have been served and will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law under their statutes and codes.
We're out, Chase.
Okay, good. Thank you, Jason.
Are we out yet?
Yeah.
Not yet.
We're out. Good.
Listen, next time, tell me about your meeting in beforehand, and I'll put up a still.
Yeah.
And that way people can follow along.
All right.
I'll send you I'll send you a text for next.
You know what? For next week, what
Prepare
I'll do
something.
for what I'll do for next week is, I know you have a weekly conference call,
That's right.
Jason. So what I'll do at the top of the hour is I'll advertise your weekly conference call so that people who are interested in Jersey can delve into it more during your conference call. Would that be good?
Yeah, it's because I think the location is going to change on the